Hi everyone, it's Samantha Nolan-Smith here, and we have just had the most beautiful smoking ceremony with Aunty Di Kerr. Thank you, Aunty Di, for that.
You're welcome.
I've realised I'm wearing both the mics, so I might give you one. Hey?
Okay.
Would you like one too?
Sharing's caring.
Yep, sharing is caring. So, Aunty Di kindly agreed to just have a bit of a chat with me about something. Let's start here. You were just chatting about your relatives, your ancestors, and not being able to care for country, not being able to do ceremony.
Mm.
Do you want to just talk a bit about their experience and about what that has done to your people and or to this country?
Well, as I said, my family lived along the Birrarung, the Yarra River, just behind Flinders Street there. And now we're moved to a place called Corranderk Station, which is a mission in Healesville. And that's where my grandmother was born. So they weren't allowed to practice their culture, they weren't allowed to speak their language. The men weren't allowed to hunt or fish, and they weren't allowed to look after their families. So everything was stripped from them, and they lived by bells. So, you know, bell for to eat, bell for this. And they built their own huts, and they had dirt floors, and they had house inspections, so they had to keep that floor flat, clean, everything. So if they were ever caught doing anything wrong, they were punished, and the way to punish was their rations were taken off them. So it was a hard life, but it was the only life they knew. So some of them, like my grandmother, thought she had a good life. But when I read her transcript or listen to her talk on tape about her life, I get very sad and very cross and very angry. I am angry that I don't have a language, because English isn't my language. But we have some young ones that are researching our language, and so hopefully within the next 5 years we'll be able to speak our language, and I'll be able to sit down and speak language and then say the English after, rather than me just speak English. So the words that I used outside before in the smoking ceremony, I learnt passages. That's all I know. I know a few cheeky words, you know, we all know them. We were taught them when we were young by our mum. And I felt sorry that my grandmother and mother couldn't grow up knowing their language. So their laws were taken from them as well. And it was very hard, because we had cultural laws that we need to have, and we have ceremony at certain times of the year that gives us a passage of life. So different seasons, different times, we had ceremony. And like when a baby was born, they were given their first possum skin, and they were given their name. I don't have a name, I have an English name. Their name, like my mother, she got Wollert, which means possum. That meant that she had to look after the possums. So whatever name you were given is your responsibility to look after that animal or plant. So that's how we cared for country. So that's been taken from us. But in saying that, we have now started doing our baby naming ceremonies. We've had 2 now. We've also started doing our coming of age ceremonies for our girls and our women. Those ceremonies are the first that we've had in 150 years, and we're really proud that we do that. And we're finding that our young ones are becoming really strong women and taking up their roles in society, and their mental health is, well, we don't say mental health, we say emotional health and well-being, which is nicer, and it's a lot stronger. They feel connected to their country, they feel safer on country, and they're learning about their family, and they're learning about their culture, which is what they're entitled to. They're entitled to know that, because we have well documented genealogy Our family is fairly lucky that we have a genealogy that goes back to 3 generations before colonisation. So we know who we are and we know where we come from. So we can do that and share it with the young ones. So if we can start doing our ceremonies through the stars, through the seasons, we have 6 seasons, not 4. And we have women's ceremony, men's ceremony, mixed ceremony, certain marriages, that was taken, the marriages were taken, we weren't allowed to marry into certain tribes. But because everybody went on to the mission together, mixed, there was, it was really hard to know who you could marry and who you couldn't marry. So that's why we have to know who we are, because sometimes you actually fall in love with family and you don't know that it's family, because we're still trying to find our family because of the stolen generations and things. So that, it's been a long journey for us, and it's been a time where, my grandmother taught us to never show our feelings, to always walk with our head high, and we've always done that. Whenever we have anything that's troubling us, or someone says something, or we're sad, automatically we think what she's told us, and we put that head up and we walk. And that's ingrained in us. We always keep our house well. We always worry about our children, and we always follow our laws. And our laws are not to harm the land or the waters, and to look after Bunjal's children, and Bunjal's our creator. And at the moment in society, that is not happening. At the moment, because of new developments, the land is being hurt. The land is our mother, and she's crying out in pain. The waterways are all clogged up and they're her veins, so she can't breathe. So we need to all work together to make her healthy. And looking after the children is very important. And our children every day are at risk. And it's not just Aboriginal children, it's every child. They're being hurt. They're missing. There's so many missing children that it scares me. And it's part of life, and it should not be part of life. So we all need to work together to make this a better life. And only we can do it. We have to stop waiting for other people to do. We can't do that anymore. It's imperative that we say, we are not going to wait, we are going to do. And really it's the women that need to do, because the women have always held the family together. And Aboriginal women are strong women, because our men have suffered. Even though we suffered, our men suffered more, because their life was completely stripped from them. Their women were raped or murdered, their children were taken, their role in society was taken, and their role as looking after their family were taken from them. That's why they have problems. It's not because they're a drunk, or it's not because they're Aboriginal. It's because they have suffering, and it's post-traumatic stress syndrome, and it's transgenerational. We take on the troubles from generations ago. But I do what I do, and I do my ceremonies, and I do my journey in well-being, because I don't want my grandchildren to take on our suffering. It needs to stop, and they need to be strong. And my children's generation are strong. And they don't want the lateral violence, and they don't want the fighting, and they don't want to take on that burden. So hopefully by the time they're ready to be elders, because they're in their 30s, most of our kids, by the time that they're old enough, because we have young elders, because most of our family die very young, they will be so strong that we won't have to worry for the future. And they want to walk together with everybody, and I think that's very important. And we all say we need to walk together. We all say it, but we don't do it. And it's time that we did it. We all sit in our houses scared of our neighbours. You know? I'm the same. I don't really know my neighbours. I've only lived in my house for 12 months because I had to move for violence, for fear of violence and fear of safety for my family. So where I am, I don't really know where I am. I don't know. I've moved completely away from my safety zone. But when we were growing up, and I said I'd never say that because my mother said that when I was young. But I say it, you know, we all looked after each other. The neighbours looked after each other's children. We called the neighbours uncle and auntie. We don't do that anymore. The doors are shut for fear of the children being hurt. So we have to somehow make this a better place. I don't know how to do it. All I know is about talking to each other and sharing our stories. That's what I tell everybody every day, to talk to someone that you don't know and share that story. Because I know that if we understand each other's culture, we can live in harmony.
Yes.
That's the only way I know that we can do it.
So this is why for us sharing stories is such an important part of Australian Women's Day. This is why the theme of the year is It's Time to Unite, because we are 100% with you, Aunty Di, about everything that you've just said. So thank you so much for coming. I wonder if you might just tell everybody one more thing about the eucalyptus leaf, which you were sharing with us outside, about, you know, if you're feeling sad, what you can do with the eucalyptus leaf. If you're feeling a bit sick, what you can do.
Well, the eucalyptus leaf is, you know, manigum is the main one, the really long ones. Is a healing leaf. So if you're not feeling the best, crunch it up, sniff it, goes through your body, helps your head, clears your head, and it takes away that headache. But you can always put it in a jar, or not a glass jar, a tin, smoke it up and sniff the smoke and clean yourself. It's very important to cleanse yourself and do that, and that's very healing as well. And we're the manigum people, the grub of the tree, the witchetty grub.
Well, thank you,
Thank you.
manigum people. We love you.
I love you too. Thank you.